Supply, they're going to go into a lot more detail, so I'll leave it to them. It's their job to buy the fuel, but we have audit and step in and review provisions because our community is so concerned that this be sustainable, that we protect the environment. In fact, so we have minimum standards that were designed after reviewing the IPCC carbon sequestration protocols. And the basic concept is forests sequester carbon. And so we're taking the wood and we're burning it. How is it carbon neutral? Well, the way that forests sequester carbon is by putting it in the ground or putting it into buildings. So we're not going to take merchantable timber and we're not taking stumps unless they're pulling out the stumps for land clearing or something like that. But in a forest, there is the option to pull up the stumps before you replant. That's actually not good for the soils, and it's not good for carbon sequestration. We're not going to promote exotic species like special kinds of plants. There are standards in there about trying to keep the leaves on the site so the nutrients stay there. And we have something called Division of Forestry Best Management Practices. But the thing that I think we're the first in the country to do is we have a bonus payment because there are third-party companies that will certify your forest as being managed in a higher and better way. And so if you have a third-party certification that meets our standards outside of GREC, outside of American Renewables, the City of Gainesville will pay a premium for that. Depending on the program, 50 cents a ton or $1 a ton. The idea is to promote sustainably better forest practices. So we have minimum standards that were designed after reviewing the IPCC carbon sequestration protocols. And the basic concept is forests sequester carbon. And so we're taking the wood and we're burning it. How is it carbon neutral? Well, the way that forests sequester carbon is by putting it in the ground or putting it into buildings. So we're not going to take merchantable timber and we're not taking stumps unless they're pulling out the stumps for land clearing or something like that. But in a forest, there is the option to pull up the stumps before you replant. That's actually not good for the soils, and it's not good for carbon sequestration. We're not going to promote exotic species like special kinds of plants. There are standards in there about trying to keep the leaves on the site so the nutrients stay there. And we have something called Division of Forestry Best Management Practices, which is how do you grow your forest and how do you cut it down. And you need to comply with that in order to have a contract that's correct. But the thing that I think we're the first in the country to do is we have a bonus payment because there are third-party companies that will certify your forest as being managed in a higher and better way. And so if you have a third-party certification that meets our standards outside of GREC, outside of American Renewables, the City of Gainesville will pay a premium for that. Depending on the program, 50 cents a ton or $1 a ton. The idea is to promote sustainably better forest practices. And these are the current programs that have been approved. And we manage it, and we can change the incentive and the criteria in response to the market. The idea is to promote good forestry practices. So the reason why we talk about the fuel prices being so stable and so flat is that really the only volatile part of the price of the chips, you guys are in the chip business, so you know this probably more than I do, is the diesel fuel. And that's a small part of the whole cost. There's a fixed, there's a guarantee for heat rate or efficiency, and these are the good things about the contract, is that we manage our ownership risks. So, on that end, my part of the presentation, I'm happy to take questions now. And here's my email, so you can get in touch with me later.
I have two questions. First question about energy efficiency. You said that it was, as political instrument, decided that energy efficiency and renewables.
Right.
Could you tell about energy efficiency? How did you realize that, and about the policy instruments?
We do energy efficiency in 3 ways. One way is we design our rates. So the more you use, the more you pay. And that makes a big difference. We found we also do that with water. The more you use, the more you pay for water. And that has a large effect on customer patterns and behavior. The second one is customer information. We provide a lot of information on appliances, appliance efficiencies. And then we have our conservation programs. For example, for low-income people, we will go and give them a grant and pay for them to fix up their house up to $3,000 a house based on what needs to be done first. Maybe it's fix the window first, or put in insulation first, or maybe it's a new air conditioner. So there's low-end programs where we go in and fix the houses up. We have rebate programs where if your air conditioner breaks, and the efficiency ratings are based on something called SEER. If you buy a higher efficiency SEER, we pay for the difference. We give you a rebate. So rebates. Things like compact fluorescent lights. We gave away 50,000 of them one year, and now we don't even give away because the prices come down so low that everybody buys them anyway. So we got the market, help get the market started. We give rebates for insulation. We give rebates if you have an electric water heater, for example, and you change it to a natural gas water heater. We give you a rebate for that, which is a good thing because we're the gas company too. So we have the gas and the electric. We make more money on the electric, but it's what we're trying to save energy here. We also give rebates for gas heat. We can give you a whole list of the financial incentives and the technical information that we give people. And what really helps us a lot is that these rebates don't just go to the customer. Parts of the rebates go to the trades people. So they're very interested in selling our programs for us. We don't have a large sales staff. We don't have to have a large sales staff. These people go out there and you need an air conditioning maintenance, they'll give you $50, and they get a share of that. So that's kind of how we turn that whole conservation thing around so fast. And
second question, you said 30% cost savings based on tax initiative.
Right.
Could you explain a little bit more?
Sure. Why don't you answer that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
This is Josh Levine.
Hello. As part of the stimulus package, which came out from the federal government in February of 2008, there had been a tax incentive in place. It's called the investment tax credit, and it had been in place for a number of years, but it had only been eligible for solar technologies, photovoltaics, etc. And then in February of 2008, it was expanded to include biomass energy and wind energy. And basically what it is that it says that there is a certain amount of what we call qualified property. So it's not all of your capital cost, but it's the majority of it, okay? And so you are able to receive as a tax credit 30% of whatever you spend that's considered qualified, okay, on your capital expenses. The really nice thing about it is that you receive that credit within 60 to 90 days after you begin operations, okay? For a number of years in this country, the way that we incentivized renewable energy was through what's called a production tax credit, okay? Similar to a feed-in tariff where you get a certain amount per kilowatt hour that's produced, but unlike a feed-in tariff where you receive cash, you would be a credit, okay? And it would happen over a 10-year period. So what the federal government was doing was to incentivize projects that were ready to happen but just could not get financing. They allow you to get this upfront 30% of your capital costs as a tax credit. You still do have the dilemma of needing to have an investor who has a tax appetite. Okay, that's still obviously an issue. But if you can find somebody who does have a tax liability and can use those credit, it's a very attractive measure. So that's the investment tax credit.
I think if there's a cost per megawatt hour, it doesn't reduce the cost per megawatt hour by 30% because it only applies to the capital part of it.
The main goal of it was incentivizing investment in this type of technology. So creating jobs, getting projects started, but also deploying these types of technologies.
And your advice for Latvia, for example, Edgar showed you that those boiler houses which are operated by use of natural gas, they have maybe 2 times higher tariffs than in those where wood chips are used. Your advice is to use your methodology for to getting them which are on natural gas to replace by wood chips by this tax initiative.
I think the big thing to look at would be what is the dollar per BTU cost of the natural gas versus the dollar per BTU of the biomass or the other alternative fuel that you're going to use. And right now in this country, Ed alluded to it, on a dollar per BTU value right now, natural gas is fairly cheap, and that's making it somewhat difficult where we know that biomass energy has higher capital costs, but over the long term should be cheaper to operate.
Lower fuel.
Yes, yes.
So really what you're talking about is a parliamentary fix, which would be to provide these kind of financial incentives. In our case, it was local politics, because we could raise the rates. Who sets the rates in your communities? You set your own rates?
We have regulator, and we have specific tariffs are regulated by specific governmental institution.
Market board, regulator. Yeah.
The problem I think you're going to run into, that we've run into in America, is that even states that have renewable portfolio standards or requirements, the regulators they're all set up for lowest cost. And renewable energy is often not the lowest cost on the front end, at least around here. And so that's been a little problem, getting everything approved by regulators. As a municipal, we set our own rates, and so we can pretty much do what we want within reason. So that's one of the reasons why I think you'll see municipals stepping out and doing kind of radical programs before you see the big investor-owned utilities, because we don't have the regulatory impediments that they have. So I saw your graph on the relative heating things, and so the real question is what's the cost to convert? And were those district heating costs?
Yes, district heating costs.
Oh, well, so it's really one boiler versus the other. Unless you're doing cogeneration, then it's not so easy to change. So you have to be case by case.
No, curious situation is that natural gas, BTU of natural gas is 2 times higher than for wood chips, and 2 and 3 times.
But it's so easy to take natural gas and go, shh. You don't have any particulates. With wood, you burn it, you got smoke, you got to clean the smoke and everything else. Did you have a question, or was that you, or was it you?
I had a question. Yeah, about sourcing of the wood biomass. Do you have a lot of competitions? In Latvia, there are many companies already producing with wood energy, and a lot is exported to Finland, to the pulp industry, and a lot of wood fuel is going nowadays to Sweden, which has a very strong subsidy on such kind of energy use. How it is in this area, and is that not a problem of you in the future, or?
Yeah, we have quite a few slides that talk about that, and we can get into more detail when we get up there. But
The answer is yes.
yeah. I mean, we've done a lot of fuel studies to really gauge how much wood there is in the area, what the competitive uses are, what we think is going to happen in the future. And for the time being, everything looks great. What happens in the future, who can tell? But we're comfortable, at least for the foreseeable future, that there is plenty of availability.
One of the major points that we've tried to make to the industry in general is that the biggest risk to deforestation or basically changing landscapes is not overuse of the resource, in our opinion, but it's actually the fact that there's no demand for the forestry products, and therefore someone maybe decide to develop land, turn it into condominiums or golf courses or whatever it might be. Okay? What we've tried to show the industry is that if we can have a healthy demand for these types of products, these wood products, it'll help the whole industry, keep it vibrant. People will want to invest in forest land and keep the forest producing. And that's been a big selling point.